Meal planning can feel very difficult. It can feel very overwhelming, especially when you are on a limited budget. So today we are going to meal plan for almost the entire month on a very limited budget. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. All right, so it is May and I really didn't remember how crazy May was. And I even saw some podcast episodes and YouTube videos about May and how crazy it can be. And I thought, I don't feel crazy. I don't feel overwhelmed. And then I realized that all at one time we have Mother's Day coming up, so I need to buy things for that. I realized that we have end of year teacher gifts, so I want to buy things for that. And, you know, here and there, there's, you know, a graduation party or a baby shower, both of those things. You can fill in the blank with whatever yours is. So this is not the video that I had planned to share today. I had planned to share my May reset. So that will be coming out. That will be the video that you see next. But in that, I'll be talking about kind of recommitting to budgeting, and that's something that we are doing this month. I'm very excited about. So there's still lots of adjusting with that. You know that a budget is meant to be fluid and you kind of have to tweak it as you go. Ideally, I would have planned ahead for these things and set aside money and knew that that was going to happen. And I just didn't think about it. So now we're in this situation where we say, okay, we're not going to go negative in our budget because our savings goals are really important to us right now. So how can we adjust? So one area that I like to be really creative is with our meals. I really like meal planning. I do it a week to 2 weeks at a time. I go to the grocery store very few times, and I am learning how to preserve our food and make it last longer so that I don't have to go to the store as often, and therefore I spend less money. But I sat down on May 8th and I said, I wonder how long I could stretch our groceries. So I had gone shopping the week before and I bought some things with a loose idea of what to make, but I definitely did not buy planning to do the entire month at one time. But I decided to sit down and say, could I get to the end of the month or close to the end of the month without buying very many ingredients? And I'm pleased to tell you that I was able to plan for the entire month, and I'm only going to need to do a small grocery trip to make this possible. So my hope and my goal is that I can kind of reduce that second Aldi trip of the month, and I can take some of that money and allocate it to the miscellaneous category, which I did not allocate enough to this month. Again, it's one of those things that I could beat myself up for it, or I could say, all right, let's figure out how we can adjust here, because we certainly can adjust. And again, there is that buffer with the savings goals, but I really don't want to cut into that if at all possible. I also don't want to dip into our emergency fund for things that are really just not emergencies. So I am accomplishing this in 3 different steps. So the first step is smart meal planning. The second step is a mixture of regular and vegetarian recipes. And the third is thinking outside the box. So I'm going to take you guys along with me as I sit down and I think this through, and we're going to supplement the whole month with meals. For context, we are a family of 4 and my children are 7 and 4. So whenever I start meal planning, the very first thing I do is look at what I already have. Of course, you have many expensive gadgets in your kitchen, right? We have expensive tools, we have appliances. But the thing that adds the most value to your meal planning this week and the rest of the month is the food that you already have. So that's where we are always going to start. So I begin by just looking in our fridge. I look in our pantry. I look at the end of our island where we have our dried goods stored in jars. I look to see, do we have anything that needs replenishing? Do we have anything that maybe I could use this last little bit up to create some sort of recipe? And then we are blessed enough to have a backup pantry storage as well as a backup fridge and freezer. So I don't stock that to the max because I want to make sure that we are running through our things, but I do keep extra things in there that I don't have room for in the house. So once I have gone through and I kind of have some things floating around in my head, I started out by listing the recipes. All right, so the first ones that I did were the meat recipes, so you will see that here. And one thing that I try to do is I try to take one package of protein and see how far I can stretch it. So I actually have a video where I did this with chicken a couple of years ago, and I created several chicken recipes from just one pack of chicken. So that's definitely a tip, is try to stretch that protein. Don't look at 1 pound of meat or one package of chicken and say this is the equivalent of one recipe. Likely you can stretch that much farther.
All right, so the first on the list is sheet pan nachos. So I started out by just writing the ingredients that I would need for each of these, just so I could kind of keep in my head what I was going to be using up. So if you'll notice, I'm actually bulking up this turkey by only using a ½ pound, and then I'm adding beans and tomatoes to it. So then I'm taking the rest of that turkey, or almost the rest of it. I'm taking 1 pound of it. This was a 2-pound package, and I'm making egg roll in a bowl. So if you've never had this before, I've shared it on my page before. It's basically just a deconstructed egg roll. And then finally, we're using up the last of that package of turkey by making either a lasagna or a lasagna bowls. So that's why I have mozzarella and cream cheese listed over here. There are 2 different recipes I've been looking at online, and I just haven't chosen which one I'm going to use yet. And then if you'll notice here, I am using a big pack of chicken drumsticks to make 2 different recipes. So the first one is a pack of Asian drumsticks. Carrots are super cheap. I already have them. Rice is super cheap. I already have that. And then you just sweeten up the carrots, and rice is super easy to make. And the chicken is just a couple of ingredients that I already have. Same thing with the barbecue chicken drumsticks. And then I have some buttermilk that I need to use up, so I'm going to try a new buttermilk recipe for biscuits. I'm really excited about that. And then I have some green beans that we canned for this summer.
So then we moved from there to the more vegetarian recipes. So I will link everything down below. And of course, I'm right in the middle of this right now, so I don't have videos and pictures of all of the recipes, but I will link the ones that I'm using down below. You can really have a lot of variety, a lot of flavor, and actually a lot of protein with vegetarian recipes. You can use things like chickpeas and beans, and then you can bulk things up with carbs. You can do rice. You can make a loaf of homemade bread. I'm very blessed to have family that will try things, and it doesn't mean that they like everything, but they will try everything. My husband's very grateful that I am the cook here, and he would prefer me to do that and him to handle other things. And he doesn't complain about the things that I make, so I'm very blessed in that right.
So these are kind of the 2 vegetarian recipes, and I will link those down below. I have mentioned the black bean sweet potato hash before. It's so good. And then the Lazy Genius has this recipe for the chickpea bowl, and basically it is like a vegetarian butter chicken. It's got those kind of Indian spices. They're really good. And then lastly, there were 2 meals that we had meat for that I kind of forgot about. So breakfast for dinner using some pork sausages and making some potatoes in the oven, and then using kielbasa to do either kielbasa and potatoes or a kielbasa and sauerkraut.
The last thing that I mentioned was thinking outside the box. When I got down to the bottom, I just started thinking about what extra ingredients do I have. Maybe you have an extra half of a pepper, and maybe you have a little bit of marinara sauce, and maybe there are some extra vegetables that you had not planned on using, and maybe there are some noodles. So you can come up with maybe a vegetarian marinara pasta and you saute the vegetables. Maybe you are down to cold cuts and some cheese, but then you find that you have some crackers and maybe you have some dried fruit. And so one night you just do a charcuterie board. It's easy, it's hodgepodge, you can get the kids to help you do it, and then you're using up those ingredients.
And then here are a couple examples of those think outside the box. I'm going to do some sort of bean soup or chili. I'm going to do pasta salad and buy some chicken to go with it. And then lastly, I'm going to make some egg bites, which I have made in a breakfast prep video before, and I will link that down below. So we did make your own pizzas for lunch on these little mini naans that I have in the freezer, and these are the toppings that are left. It would be so easy to just throw this away, but instead I'm just going to put it in here because this could totally be the start of another pizza, or it could be a snack for one of the kids. So I really try not to waste anything if I can.
How to make the pizza? Mommy, can I have some of that?
Well, I was going to put it in the fridge, but she's already asked to eat it now. So there you go. It's so easy to just get caught in the things that we normally do. I am very much a recipe repeater. I like to throw something new in every now and then, but I kind of just stick to the same basic ideas, and every now and then I will throw in a new recipe. So we don't have to rethink everything. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just start with what you have, start with what you know your family likes, and then move forward from there. All right, so that is it. I wish that I had pictures and videos of the recipes to show you, but I'm really kind of doing this real time. Last night we had the nachos, and today I made the egg roll in a bowl. So I can show you those two things. But again, everything else that I'm making, I will link those recipes down below. And I hope that you are able to make it through May. I hope if you have some stressful things or some unexpected expenses that you are able to kind of field that and that you are able to finish the month well. If you have any questions for me, leave those in the comments below. And I will be talking to you in the next video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and have a great one.